Welcome to AI News in 10, your top AI and tech news podcast in about 10 minutes. AI tech is amazing and is changing the world fast. For example, this entire podcast is curated and generated by AI using my and my kids' cloned voices. It's Monday, April 27th, 2026. We've got a global AI doubleheader opening today, a massive week of tech earnings on deck, chip design bellwethers reporting after the bell, and lawmakers in Europe sliding back into Strasbourg with AI implementation timelines under the microscope. So let's get into it. First up, Tokyo. Sushi Tech Tokyo 2026 opens today at Tokyo Big Sight. Organizers are pitching it less like a sit-and-watch conference and more like a matchmaking deal room for AI and future city tech. 60,000 attendees, 750 startup exhibitors, 151 sessions, city leaders from 49 countries, and notably 10,000 pre-booked business meetings to push pilot projects and procurement over the finish line. Business days are today and tomorrow, with a public day on Wednesday. There's even a telepresence option where on-site, staff walk the floor with your face on a screen, so remote participants can interact in real time. Sony, Google, Microsoft, and Mizuho are among the corporate partners courting startups this week. If your team is hunting for pilots or municipal partners for AI deployments, think traffic optimization, disaster resilience, robotics, and digital twins, this is a high-signal stop. The positioning is deliberate. One preview framed it as the opposite of the usual fly-in, collect business cards, fly-out cycle. Here, the official app acts like a matchmaking engine, and the metric that matters isn't badge scans. It's the 10,000 structured meetings already on the books. That's the kind of infrastructure you need when AI solutions move from slideware to city-scale rollouts. But first, let's hear a word from our sponsors.
Need elite developers fast? Elite Coders connects you with rigorously vetted senior engineers in 24 to 48 hours. Staff augmentation, dedicated teams, or full project delivery, we've got you covered. Visit elitecoders.co to get started today.
Now, let's dive into today's stories. From Tokyo to New York, Reuters' Momentum AI conference also kicks off today, running through tomorrow in Manhattan. It's built for executives trying to operationalize AI beyond pilot purgatory. Governance, security, and industry-specific use cases. Speakers include Wayfair CTO Fiona Tan and Johnson & Johnson CIO Jim Swanson, a pairing that signals how fast retail and life sciences are industrializing AI at scale. If you need a barometer for where enterprise decision-makers are allocating budgets in Q2, 2 days of case studies and hallway chatter here will provide it. There's also a price tag that tells a story. Passes list in the high four figures, the bracket where buyers and operators, not just vendors, tend to dominate attendance. For startups eyeing design partners, and for Fortune 500 teams wrestling with model governance, data residency, or agentic workflows, this is a heads-down, what works now forum rather than a hype parade. Now, onto markets. This is the single biggest tech earnings week of 2026 so far. 4 members of the Magnificent Seven, Microsoft, Alphabet, Amazon, and Meta, report on Wednesday, April 29th, with Apple following on Thursday. Wall Street's baseline heading into the prints. Alphabet is pegged for roughly 2.63s in earnings per share on $106.9 billion in revenue, Microsoft around 4.07 on $81.4 billion, Amazon about $177.2 billion on the top line, and Meta near $55.6 billion. Expectations center on one question. Did all that eye-watering AI capex translate into monetization and margin, or are we still in build the runway mode? For Microsoft specifically, circle the date. Its investor call is set for Wednesday, April 29th, after the close. After months of headlines about AI infrastructure spend and the Copilot push across Windows and Microsoft 365, several analysts have called this the most consequential tech call of the year. If Azure AI growth, Copilot seat expansion, and AI-adjacent tailwinds for GitHub and security don't show clear monetization vectors, investors will start asking harder questions about payback periods on that capex curve. That earnings drumbeat starts today on the picks and shovels side. After the bell, Cadence Design Systems reports first quarter results. Cadence sits upstream of the AI boom, providing electronic design automation software and increasingly AI-inflected tools that help design the chips running in today's data centers. The company closed 2025 touting a record $7.8 billion backlog and double-digit growth. Today's update will show whether AI-driven design complexity is a multi-year tailwind, or whether foundry capacity and customer tape-out timing are adding some lumpiness. Also after the bell, Rambus. If you've followed the memory bandwidth arms race, HBM stacks, DDR5 controllers, and GDDR variants feeding GPU clusters, Rambus's licensing and chips are one of the quieter but pivotal stories in AI infrastructure. A clean beat, plus color on memory interface demand heading into the back half, would support the thesis that AI compute remains supply constrained not just by GPUs, but by the plumbing around them. The call is slated for late afternoon Eastern Time. Before we continue, here's a quick message from our sponsors.
This episode is brought to you by Family GPT, the AI chat platform actually designed for kids. If your children are curious about ChatGPT but you're worried about what they might see, Family GPT gives you full parental controls, content filtering, and the ability to align responses with your family's values, whether Christian, Muslim, Jewish, secular, and many more. Monitor every conversation, set usage limits, and let your kids explore AI safely. No ads, no data selling, complete privacy. Sign up free at familygpt.chat. That's FAMILYGPT.chat.
All right, let's get back to it. Let's pivot to policy. The European Parliament's April plenary session opens today in Strasbourg and runs through Thursday, one of the last full slates before campaigning fully consumes the 2026 calendar. Even when AI isn't the headline item on the day's voting docket, the Chamber's work this week sits against the live backdrop of how fast the EU's landmark AI Act phases in. Industry has been pressing hard on timing, particularly on watermarking and high-risk system obligations, arguing that supply chains and tooling need a little more runway. In fact, Parliament signalled support last month for pushing some compliance dates. Members backed giving providers until November 2nd, 2026 to meet watermarking requirements, with additional proposals to extend certain high-risk deadlines out to December 2027, and even August 2028, where overlapping sector rules apply. Regulators say the aim is pragmatic sequencing. Critics warn that each delay risks normalizing move-fast practices before guardrails are in place. Watch committee briefings and floor statements this week for hints on how much flexibility the final implementation calendar will really allow. Taken together, today's agenda sketches a useful map of where AI stands as April closes. In Tokyo and New York, the pitch is less about demos and more about deployment, pre-scheduled deal tables, governance frameworks, and tight vertical use cases. In the markets, investors want hard evidence that last year's GPU orders and this year's data center buildouts are flowing through to revenue and durable margins. In Brussels and Strasbourg, lawmakers are calibrating the tempo, how quickly to demand watermarking, how broadly to define high risk, and how to staff up the AI office to actually enforce the rules. Here's how I'd connect the dots as you start your week. If you're building AI products, the conferences launching today are a reminder to optimize for proof of value that clears procurement, not just clever features. If you're a buyer, the smartest play this week is to listen for total cost of ownership signals in Wednesday's earnings calls, pricing, unit economics on seats or tokens, and any details on how vendors plan to shoulder power, networking, and memory supply constraints so they don't become your problem. And if you're navigating regulation, Europe's debate over phased compliance is a preview of the global posture. Move toward enforcement, yes, but stagger the deadlines to keep innovation moving. Quick recap. Sushi Tech Tokyo 2026 opens with a deliberate deal room design to move AI from talk to contracts. Reuters Momentum AI. New York convenes operators for 2 days of case study heavy sessions. The biggest earnings week of the year looms midweek, with Microsoft, Alphabet, Amazon, Meta, and Apple under the microscope. Cadence and Rambus kick off the chip design and memory IP angle after today's close. And in Strasbourg, the European Parliament's plenary puts AI implementation timing back in focus as industry and regulators negotiate the runway. We'll keep tracking the signals and the surprises as the week unfolds. Thanks for listening, and a quick disclaimer. This podcast was generated and curated by AI using my and my kids' cloned voices. If you want to know how I do it or want to do something similar, reach out to me at emad@ainewsin10.com. That's ainewsin10.com. See you all tomorrow.